Over a century ago, Congress passed the Sherman Antitrust Act to protect competition in the marketplace. As the Supreme Court has explained, the, quote, central evil addressed by Section 1 of the Act is the elimination of competition that would otherwise exist, including competition on prices. When the Sherman Act was passed, an anti-competitive scheme might have looked like robber barons shaking hands at a secret meeting. Today, it looks like landlords using mathematical algorithms to align their rents. But antitrust law does not become obsolete simply because competitors find new ways to unlawfully act in concert. And Americans should not have to pay more in rent simply because a company has found a new way to scheme with landlords to break the law. So today, after a nearly 2-year investigation, the Justice Department, joined by 8 states, has sued RealPage, a commercial real estate software company, for violating the Sherman Act.
And welcome to the This Week in Worcester podcast. My name is Tom Marino. I am editor of This Week in Worcester. This is John Edward Keogh. He is executive producer of Manny J Media, and that was Attorney General Merrick Garland announcing that the federal government and 8 states have sued RealPage, which is a story we covered in the past. Includes also a civil lawsuit by a class action group against a number of real estate companies, including 2 that do business in Worcester. They are, I'm going to forget both of their names now. Help me out.
Wind companies and oh my goodness, Tom, it's hard.
Another company that's the biggest that we're both too dumb to remember, which is the largest property management company in the world that has two properties in Worcester as well. So just kind of a follow-up here. We wrote about this. Of course, Wind Companies is one of the top executives at that company, is former city manager. Greystar, thank you, is the other company. Wind Companies with former city manager Michael Bryan is an executive there. He, of course, is unlikely to have been the person who selected what software they use, but nonetheless, it is relevant that, former city manager is at a company that's named in class action lawsuit relative to price fixing of rents.
I mean, does it feel good to be justified, Tom? Does it feel nice to have a story that we break our way?
That I personally received criticism for, but nonetheless.
Turns out, now, the big part of the story is Attorney General Garland there was that 8 states joined in the lawsuit. Let me just get the list so we can not get fact-checked live. But
one of them is not Massachusetts.
That's right. Right. Hold on, I am doing it. So the 8 states are North Carolina, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Minnesota, Oregon, Tennessee, and Washington State. Those are the 8 states that have. Now, if you go to our story, Tom had done the research to find all the states. There was many more states that were in the originating lawsuit in Tennessee that led to the raid in Atlanta. So those other states haven't joined yet. But if you go to the DOJ's website and actually go there, the other 14 states didn't say that they weren't going to join. They just haven't filed there's like a friend of the briefing. And if you go look at those states, most of the time they don't file joint briefings with anybody. They only file individual briefs. So it's a very normal practice at this level of lawsuits that states will join into suits like this afterwards. And then there's another thing is there's other states that might join even later, which if you remember the tobacco lawsuits, what happens is there's going to be a hearing that relates to whether or not a judge says that this case can go forward or not, right? Probable cause hearing at the very beginning. If this passes probable cause, I expect almost every state to join this lawsuit, similar to the tobacco companies' lawsuits. Eventually, all 50 states joined into those because the notes, if you look at the notes, man, You don't do an antitrust lawsuit unless you got it. You got to have it. This is such a hard case to prove, but the DOJ seems to think that they have this case pretty good. So
Yeah, and typically, when the federal government gets on, the federal government is not efficient at much. The Department of Justice is incredibly efficient. When they, take legal action, whether it is file charges or file a lawsuit, yeah, they usually have you. Typically, when you have, especially in a criminal case, which this is not, but in a criminal case, if you get federal charges, that is usually your bum. That is usually you're behind.
So just and real quick, so again, Tom had gone on the radio. For those of you who've watched and if you followed this story, and he had gotten some criticism for including wind companies in this lawsuit, and specifically naming former city manager Michael Bryant. And one of the things that he was criticized about specifically by a series of people on Twitter, because no one ever wants to actually say anything anymore, was about how they would approve whether or not data was shared through there's two specific software, YieldStar and another one called AIRM. If you go to page 7 of the complaint, and I understand I'm not asking everybody to go to the DOJ website and read it, but specifically in the contract they signed with YieldStar and AIRM, the individual landlords agreed to share nightly lease level information on each unit, and that is how you manipulate rent. That is that is exactly why these laws are in place. They right off the bat. So Tom, I hope you feel justified because you were, and that alone, that one single piece, even if this doesn't result in anybody getting arrested, shows that they were manipulating the data. And that's probably the linchpin of the case. And it's one of the first items on page 7. So anybody who wants to fact check us, go to page 7 of the DOJ complaint, section 18, and you'll be able to see Tom was right. Tom was right.
I mean, it wasn't that hard. There's a gigantic lawsuit that's involved everybody on the planet and a bunch of real estate companies, 2 of which do business in Worcester. Upsetting to not see the state be involved in this. We love to sign on to lawsuits. So I guess we'll see how it happens. What happens with that. So just an update there. The feds are moving. I don't think that this. I don't believe right. None of the real estate companies were named in the DOJ's action, right?
Just right now, it's just RealPage.
Yeah.
So this is just the first step in a Sherman antitrust lawsuit, right? It's a super complicated lawsuit. It takes many years. So I'm sure people who are watching know about this concept of creating these independent lawyers that then investigate certain things, right? President Trump has been investigated by one of those independent attorneys. President Biden has been investigated by one. President Clinton had a very special one for a long period of time. When you do a Sherman antitrust lawsuit, it kind of creates a lawsuit that has to last past an administration, right? So there's a certain set of standards you have to adhere to even file this lawsuit. And then, so they have to start with the initial entity, and then eventually there's going to be like branch lawsuits that shoot off onto all those companies. This is the beginning of a very, very long battle. And it's going to take many, many, many years. As Tom said, Greystar is the biggest property management company in the world, and they have unlimited resources to fight this battle. But I'm assuming that there's somebody somewhere at Greystar headquarters and RealPage and wind companies who are going to try to find a way to settle this as fast as possible and get out of the way, because it's going to be really hard if they have individual landlords' signatures somewhere, or property management managers signing that paper that allowed lease level information to be put into a database, because that's illegal in every state that I know. I mean, this is pretty typical antitrust stuff. So what they're saying is, they're using a piece of software and an algorithm, but essentially it's no different than if somebody was going around and collecting a bunch of information that would otherwise be private, be proprietary financial data,
and they're agreeing to share it amongst each other, specifically to set prices.
If I went to your house and I saw a printout of your bank statement and I took a copy of that and then I posted it online, I could go to jail for that because that's your personal data that I can't share. And we know we live in a society now. It's 2024 where data breaches have been in fact, just 10 days ago, the Social Security Administration admitted a huge Social Security data breach, right? Where people's Social Security numbers were exposed to hackers. So in this case, you have companies volunteering that information when they're not even supposed to. It's not supposed to go past the paper. These are hand signed documents that they're scanning into a machine and then putting it into this software that reads and analyzes all that data. Again, just really poor behavior here, and just not thinking, even if it wasn't intentionally criminal, it's just bad thinking to think that this was a good idea. And they spent money on it too, Tom, which also increased the price of people's rent. They spent money and then passed those costs on to renters. It's just bad all around.
So just want to do a quick update on that is moving forward at the federal level, at least with the software company. Again, the two companies that use this software that we know of, at least, that do business in Worcester, are not included in that lawsuit. They are included in a different lawsuit that's being heard in Tennessee. And lastly, just one thing I noticed that I couldn't find previously. The DOJ says that RealPage's market share is 80%. So lots and lots and lots of people are using this.
Yes, 80% is a massive number, and generally speaking, as when you look at any of the antitrust lawsuits that we've seen, where it's like anti-competitive, like Microsoft and Google have been sued by the Department of Justice in the past. Those were not 80% dominant. Those were 50 and 65 and those kind of dominance, and they were using their powers to manipulate. So in this particular case, you had a company dominating at that level. It's just, again, bad decision making. Whoever thought this was a good idea, but they probably made a lot of money, tons, billions probably. And are the real people going to get any of this money back? Is my question.
No one will go to jail. No one will go to jail. Nobody will get their money back. It's
crazy because if you shoplift, I mean, I guess maybe shoplifting is a bad question, but if you go and you take a knife and you go to a convenience store and you steal $20 from the register, you go to jail for a long period of time. And in this case, it's not a knife, but it's very much using the power of people's lives. They have no other choice but to pay these prices because they need to live. And they can't.
When you conspire to rip off the country in the middle of a housing crisis, you get to buy your way out of it. That is, it's just like if you falsify all kinds of data and do all kinds of crazy things to sell opioids in mass, nobody goes to jail. People pay some money. They stay rich.
It's crazy.
That's how it is what it is.
That nice, like real positive opening to the show, right? We come in with a topic.
That's what's going to happen, though. That's what's going to happen. Rich people don't go to jail for rich people crimes, at least. If they do poor people, if they do regular people crime, yeah, they go to jail. They kill somebody, whatever, and they get caught. Yeah, they go to jail. But I mean, they just compound a housing crisis by ripping off a huge chunk of the country. That's not good enough.
Did you just say regular people crimes?
Yes, regular people crimes.
That's
like
so
people
good.
Crimes that are committed by people who don't have endless piles of money sitting around.
I don't know.
Endless piles of money sitting around.
That means Tom just said I'm a regular person.
So anyway, we have a lot to cover today, including I think what people would expect given the news cycle this week. Let's start with 3 deputy chiefs have challenged with the what I'm going to begin calling welfare for cops, the Civil Service Commission. They have challenged the city's process for selecting its next chief. So what the city has done is named interim chief Paul, the former deputy chief is now interim chief Paul Saucier into the role. It's obvious to everyone that it is the city's city manager's intention to name him as the permanent chief after a petition to the state legislature that the city opts out of the civil service system for the chief position and the deputy chief position. Now that petition is pending in the State House. That first has to go through the House, has to originate in the House, which is the most
annoying thing. Yeah.
No, it's what's the most inefficient and absolutely garbage place of any legislature in all 50 states. It is the worst house of legislature. We're led by a person who's incompetent and is given God King powers to do basically whatever they want. The House has adjourned for the session. There is some talk about an emergency session, but folks I talked to on Beacon Hill say that it is unlikely to pass in this session. And of course, we have elections in November, so something will have to be resubmitted next year, and then whoever was sitting on it will probably sit on it again. So while that works its way through that disaster of a system, the city manager's left Chief Saucier with the interim title because otherwise it has to go through a really dumb process through civil service. And these three deputy chiefs, Sean Fleming, Edward McGinn, and Carl Supernor, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, I apologize if I'm not, have gone to the Civil Service Commission and said that the city's breaking civil service law by doing this. You can't just appoint an interim position until whenever. The Civil Service Commission took kind of a half measure when they heard this week, basically encouraged the city to, put a move on it. And just lastly, as background on this, so what they want, these three individuals, is they want to take a bubble test, a fill in multiple choice test, mostly, and there's one part, at least on the captain's test, that's the highest rank that is made public. There's basically they present scenarios and you have to rate the best choices by a rating system. It is largely a bubble test. And if for any promotion or for hiring new officers, what the decision maker gets, in this case, the city manager, but also, for other positions, the chief gets is a list of people by order of score on this written test. And if they elect to select the person who has scored the highest, they have to provide a written explanation as to why to the Civil Service Commission, which is made public. So you basically have to badmouth somebody who scored higher on the test. It's the dumbest system ever. We should opt out. We shouldn't take this cowardly half measure of opting out only certain positions. We should opt out of the system completely, because what does a bubble test tell you about how a person behaves in a position? It tells you nothing. You can know all the laws and you can, select the best options available on the test and be a total jerk, or have a temper where you flip out at nothing, or you treat everyone like, they're the freshmen of your senior class, right? Like, you can be a total a-hole, but you filled out the answers correctly, so you get the job. It's the dumbest thing that's ever been invented. It started in 1881. It is way past its prime. There are a ton of towns and cities opting out either partially or totally that are waiting for State House action. Of course, again, the House of Representatives of the State House is completely broken. So, and I would just add that when the last chief resigned and Saucier was appointed interim chief, my position was that the city needed to do a nationwide search for chief and get somebody from the outside to come in here. I had hoped somebody who had reformed a department or had reformed a troubled division of a department, somebody who's rebuilt a thing in a police department, right? And here we are. It's going to be September 1st. It'll be a year later, and he's won me. He's been outstanding. He's present. He's approachable. He will listen. That doesn't mean he'll agree, but he will listen. He's seemingly everywhere you turn, he's there. He's doing, and as far as police performance, complaints against officers are down. Body cameras are helping that, but nonetheless, that's the facts. Complaints against police officers are down. There has been no big scandal. It's actually somebody with leadership qualities in a leadership position at the police department. And like me, I'm not the only one who is having confidence built in this police department with this leader. And these people care about the city so much that they want to take a test because they want the job. It's disgusting. I could not think of a thing that you could do to just put on a billboard, I don't care about the city at all. They try and take this chief out, the first chief in 20 years who's had a brain.
And clearly now you can see that some of the policies that he's put in place are apparently, even despite the fact that we have performance that we can measure that's better, right? We've documented evidence that what he's doing is good, not just in actual statistics, but also in the response from people in the community, right? I know that when he came on Manny's show, there was a big positive feedback for him when he said that he didn't want to stay for a long period of time. He wanted to make the chief's position something that got changed over on a regular basis. And then he said he wanted to be able to fire cops that didn't do the right thing, which I don't understand. I have a lot of friends who are cops in the department that I talk to quite a lot. I don't understand why they would say that they would be against that. It doesn't make any sense.
Job for life. That's what they want. Job for life.
Now, this is just, again, I don't know everybody in the police department, and there's a certain group of cops that would never speak to me ever anyways. Right. And there's more than one reason why. But the group that I talk to usually complains about the cops that have done bad things and don't want to be associated with them. So what to me it looks like is these three particular deputy chiefs would be maybe part of that group that people are complaining about. Right? Because maybe they have hid things or they have shuffled things along or they haven't done the right thing. And, when we have a breath of fresh air, right? You would think, hey, let's breathe this in and let's go and invest in this and what we see to be a good thing. Universally, this guy has been responded to as like, and he really did have a lot to overcome to get that, because we just assumed that it was in the bag, that it was another situation, that it was just the same old, but he's done pretty well. Not everything has been right, but he's definitely had a better response. Just the fact that he comes on, he talks to you, he talks to me, he talks to Manny, he goes out into the public. He's definitely been a front-facing officer. I've actually seen him walking beats with his officers and stuff more around downtown, not necessarily on every single neighborhood, but I've seen him out and about, which is definitely not something I ever saw Steve do. I just never saw him do it. So it just doesn't make any sense. This seems like, again, let's a call back to the past. Let's do things the way we used to do it, because the way we used to do it is the way that things get done. And I can't help but mention, but today, I saw I was at the Worcester Caribbean, the Carnival Association event was wonderful. Thousands upon thousands of people. And the police were there. They were there. They were, and the organizers of the carnival, they went out of their way to have a larger police presence and also to have private security. But I thought that you could see that the officers were regularly engaging. It was a completely different thing that you haven't seen. They were talking to people. They were involved, and that's what you want, right? Isn't that how we want a city to be? We want the people that protect us to also like us.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It would be nice.
A national night out this year, which was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Compared to last year, it was night and day. The last year, the police had their booth in the extreme corner of the event. There was police officers mulling around, people in the street was down at the time. So people, there's police officers in the street, and it's not like there was no, it wasn't like they were all just huddled in a corner. But the kind of official presence, the booth, was really huddled in a corner.
Yeah.
And then there was the rest of the event, and that was, there was just one way that it was completely different this year. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I don't know if that's just a different mindset. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I noticed it.
I mean, I couldn't help but say, I mean, the last 5 years, the National Night Out has been the Sheriff Lou show, and it's just about Sheriff Lou and what Sheriff Lou does. And this year was different. It was definitely more involved. There was more agencies around. It seemed like there was engagement, even between the sheriff's department and the police department. There was engagement going on between the two groups, and that to me is a marked difference. And you can't help but look to the leadership and say, oh, well, it looks like the leader has decided to do things a little bit differently. And by the way, there's still tremendous amount of work that needs to be done to heal how some communities within the community of Worcester feel about how the police department has treated them, and there's some things that have to be brought to the light. So that's a process that's going to take some time, but at least it was a good start. And so these officers the three particular chiefs wanting to go backwards doesn't make a lot of sense. Again, I'm trying to think with things logically and not trying to, see them through the lens of politics. But in this particular case, I can't help but say, this is just not logical. Let's do this. Why? There's still
the bunker mentality.
The chief. But don't you think now, I feel like, in my opinion now, if the city manager has his contract extended, that these three deputy chiefs might have just shot themselves in the foot of ever getting an opportunity to become the chief, right?
Well, so this is the bunker mentality, right? This is us against the world. It doesn't matter what the public thinks, right? Because they all hate us anyway,
But that's not true. It's not true. It's markedly not true. And that's
notice how when we have a chief that's doing the right things and has getting results, I credit them for it.
It takes about 15 seconds for police officers to become heroes again when they're engaging with the community. It's really not that hard. It seems like we're trying to make it too hard for no apparent reason. Nobody's even saying anything bad about the police department realistically in the last, basically the only negative stuff you heard about was like parking enforcement and not necessarily particular issues within the police department. Even the investigation has kind of become like a non-talking issue, but all of a sudden now this is now back to the forefront because you have three officers, and I recognize that it's not just the three officers. It just doesn't make sense. It seems like a bad complaint. And then this, just to real quick go back to the State House, the system that we have set up. That means the city can't make its own decision. That's really what it is. The city needs.
But typically home rule petitions they sail, right?
Yeah, they're easy, right?
Right, because they largely the State House will defer to the city making the petition, and unless it's something crazy, it's something illegal against state law or whatever. It is really incompetence. I think that there's a bunch of them. Milbury's trying to opt out completely, for example. This is not a new thing. There's, I think, 17. That number could be wrong. 17 stuck in my head. I didn't look today. I don't remember. I want to say 17 departments are already fully opted out. There's a bunch more trying to opt out. But you did mention officers not doing the right thing. Ironically, because let's talk about officers not doing the right thing. Last year, there was a lawsuit filed by a custodian at the Worcester Police Department.
Yeah,
he had become friendly with some officers, some in leadership. Golfed with them, whatever. And he happens to be a white man. His daughter had a baby with a black man, and when he sent the pictures to his group text of friends that included mostly from people from the police department, somebody made a racial comment. And according to the lawsuit, of course, this is just what the complaint says, after several, once that person showed that said something about, I hope that wasn't a racial comment, and, tried to say, don't do that, the comments continued.
Right. Right. Because when challenged with something like that, the right response of someone who isn't is to continue. Right. Right. Exactly. That's a really good sign that the general indication that maybe the thing that the person just said about you might be true. Right. Terrible.
So on the same day as that text was sent with comment, later in that same day, the officer who made the comment received a voicemail that said something to the effect of, "Well, I wouldn't have said it, but it sure is expletive funny." And the person that left that voicemail was Deputy Chief Edward McGinn.
No way.
And when the internal investigation questioned him about it, he could, quote, not explain the context of that voicemail. He also went on to say, so this person is now suing because said that they were part of a campaign of retribution, because he eventually informally reported it to somebody who was very upset to hear what had happened. And that person was, at the time, Deputy Chief Paul Saucier. But the person said, I don't want to lodge a formal complaint. Let me try and deal with it. And then later on, Deputy Chief McGinn, who couldn't explain the context of his voicemail, also said that this person was complaining because there was no campaign of retribution, but that McGinn says he had talked to him about job performance, but never documented any of it.
Well, because why would you, right? I mean, we don't.
So,
I'm sorry. You can't write this. This is not writable.
No,
stuff.
it's unbelievable. So that this person has a job at all is a travesty. If you can't explain the context of what appears to be you congratulating a person on making racial comments about someone's grandchild, bye. And that's what would happen in any regular job.
Right, and that's kind of.
But to get to that point, the city is going to have to walk into negotiations with a union. The union's not to blame for this. The union is supposed to represent its members and get everything it can. We're going to have leadership that's going to walk into those meetings and tell them no. And that's not going to happen because it's not politically expedient. So that's where we are. So political expediency becomes the thing that rules the day. And all we have is an individual who's made bad choices who needs to be held accountable. At least these choices were bad.
And in this particular case, the information related to the accountability came due in the public sphere, but there's actually a second sphere that says, oh, no, you're not a bad person. There's nothing you did wrong there, and we're going to protect your job at all costs.
Yep.
Now, and we've actually heard that at the city manager, when there was a comment made about a young girl, just a year and a half ago, city manager came out, well, we don't want anybody to lose their job because they said something on the internet. And that is interesting because we've seen a lot of people lose their jobs because of the things that they've said on the internet. So it's weird how those standards, all of a sudden, when you say the word double standard, people are like, whoa, what are you talking about? Well, they start to really kind of pop up, right? Where it's like, hey, if I were to say something like that, I would be smashed and gone. It's just like that. But if you say something like that, well, because you were this person in this job, we're going to keep you protected because of X. And I got to tell you, maybe it's just me, and I don't know if anybody out there wants to throw some comments in the chat, and maybe you guys can help us. If I had said something like that and got caught in a voicemail, and my voice is on saying it, I'm going to resign, dude. I'm done. Like, I don't want to go through this battle. I don't want to have.
But why would you? You can't be fired. You basically can't be fired.
No, but
there are people in this police department. There are people in this police department that got found OD'd on coke. There are people in this police department that a civil jury found was conspired to hide evidence in a case that sent a man to jail for 16 years.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is if I was the other officers again, and I know that they watch this show, and actually I can see a couple people in the that's watching right now that are police officers that are watching. If you know that the people that are in your job with you are doing these bad things, why not push to get rid of them like you would if you were going after a criminal? Like that you want to like it just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't matter what they do. These people cannot be fired.
I mean, this is not a move. This is not The Wire. This is not Baltimore, and it's not a TV show. And we're not going to have cops burying other cops because they said something about this, that. It's 2024. Turn your cell phone on and record them and put it on the internet.
Stop.
It's crazy.
None of that matters.
It's crazy.
That's why they do. It is almost impossible to fire a police officer in this city. Almost impossible.
Why would other officers want those officers to stay when they're making
They don't have
them?
a say. First
crazy.
of all, they don't want to be known as rats. First of all, because
But that's the thing.
you might as well quit.
Literally, police officers. I'm sorry. I know this is going to be really difficult to understand, right? Your job, partially, is to inform on people committing crimes.
Wait,
Literally.
no, but
And
you
you're
won't be doing that for long. You
You're
won't be
paid
doing
to
that.
do that. That doesn't make like. What do you mean? Why? How is a police officer calling another police officer a rat? How is that even? This is like a common thing. You see it all over, Law and Order and movie after movie. Think about it for 5 seconds, police officers. Please, please, please. I'm begging you.
I don't know
please,
what you're
just think
talking
about
for.
that.
I don't know why you're talking. It's not an option.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
logic.
not.
You can
Because you will
watch-
not have your job long. Because your job will be made impossible.
It's ridiculous. And your job, and that's what I'm saying though. That's it's ridiculous. We need
It's a
people.
gangster mentality. It's a gangster mentality.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Anyway, so that is not to say that cops in the city, and there are plenty of them, trying to do good work.
That's what I'm
amazing.
saying. I have relationships with some incredible officers who are trying their best, who have been involved in some of these situations and have tried to elevate these things up the line. I mean, one of my big, breaks in my career was that I was the person who I found out about the drone, and I found out about the second drone, and in the process of that, I had some really good relationships develop because some of my sources were police officers. They pointed me in the right direction, and I know that they're trying to do the right thing because that's where I got it from. I didn't. That's why if you go back to that story, and I'm only using this because I don't want to bring any other person into it, but in the context of that story, I was brought into the police department and shown it because they knew that police officers had given me the information. So they recognized it was an internal push to say, hey, we look really bad in this situation. Let's just cut ties with this. And they did, and it kind of undercut out at the time outgoing city manager Augustus, who had made these statements saying that wasn't true. And then my story came out and it turned out that it was true. It is what it is. But the people who gave it to me were almost all cops, except for one person. So, and the one person, just so anybody who wants to fact check this, is Chris Williams, who owns Cloud City Drones, where the police bought the drone from. And you can go check the story. It's available on the internet in a bunch of different places.
Yeah. So not only am I supportive of me, whom many in this city have called quote anti-police. I am quite supportive of Chief Saucier getting that position full time, and I just can't. One of those people shouldn't even have a job. Never mind ever be chief of police. Ever shouldn't run a lemonade stand. The other two people. I mean, nothing they do is illegal. Nothing they're doing is illegal. Stop. Nothing they're doing is illegal. And they are well within their rights to do what they're doing. It is just not in the best interest of the city.
Hey, if Tom turns up dead, you guys know what happened, right? Like we all know. We all know what happened. It's terrible. This is not a movie. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
So I would encourage residents continue to support this chief. He's doing a great job. And the longer we go without any ridiculous scandal, the happier I will be. That isn't great. And mind you, scandals are great for me. I get to write about them. People read them. But I am not a totally self-absorbed a-hole. So here we are.
You're not.
I mean, I'm pretty bad, but this making a play against the guy that everybody wants to be chief. I'm pretty sure at this point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that strongly believe they should go outside the department, and I was on that train. I think he's earned it. That's where I'm at. Moving on. Now that I've probably put myself in personal danger. The other ridiculous.
Tom, I will protect you, Tom. I promise.
Look at those muscles. The other ridiculous story this week that I think is being framed all wrong is the Economic Development Council. What is it called? Committee Council's Economic Development EDCC. I forget what it stands for now.
Econ- e- yeah, something community corporation, economic development, something like that. Whatever.
No, it's a allegedly informal committee that meets weekly-ish.
Worcester
It consists of the city manager, the mayor, the commissioner of economic development, or the director. I forget what his actual title. I think he's director. And people from the chamber, including one former lieutenant governor and former mayor Tim Murray, and people from the Worcester Worcester Community Development. Yeah. Craig Blaze, who was to connect all the dots here. Tim Murray was mayor when Michael Bryan was hired, and Blaze worked for Michael Bryan, and then O'Brien went to a real estate company. Much previous to that, Blaze went to this nonprofit, and they do good work, and they've gotten a lot of things built, and they are excellent at getting federal money for building stuff, to their credit. And then somebody from an industry representative from local biotech. So it's nine people that meet in. Now, what I was told by the city was that meet informally to discuss economic development.
They meet informally in the city manager's office. It's an informal meeting there. Okay, cool. Every week, cool. All right, that's cool.
Yep,
informal.
Yep. Nothing to see here. I was told that no votes or anything like that are taken. It's more of a informal conversation. Reporting by the Worcester Business Journal in 2015 said that it listed a bunch of other people that used to be involved that apparently aren't anymore. But it also said that it had a executive committee, which was the city manager and Tim Murray, really. And then they
taking shots.
They approved ideas for the full committee to quote vote on. The city tells me that's not how it works. I'm just telling you what the Business Journal said in 2015. So they have. I've never even heard of this thing before. This is all news to me. Never heard of it before. But they put out a letter this week because WPI is going to buy 2 hotels in the city on land that was cleaned up with a whole bunch of public money and then turned over to a corporation who now holds the deed and is going to sell it to WPI.
Right. And then what happens when they get sold to WPI?
And then, so it's going to take about between the real estate tax and the hotel tax, it's going to take over $1.5 million off of the tax rolls for a year. And so people are outraged. And I just asked one thing. If the city once held the deed on this land, why is there not a deed restriction? This country, many years ago, when it started funding, white flight to the suburbs, a lot of those suburban homes at one time, it was in the deed. You couldn't sell it to a black person. And we can't put a deed restriction in, so it can't be sold off the tax rolls. Sure, we could. But you know why we? But you know why we don't do that? Because that would be anti-business, and that would be communism or something. And so, protecting anything that protects regular people and protects taxpayers, that's communism. So,
are we saying that there's no deed restrictions in the city right now, Tom?
Oh, I'm sure there are, but I'm sure that they're not on corporations, on big money.
There's a special zone. I happen to know this because I am a graduate of Clark University, and there's a special zone in the city called the Clark Zone, and I'm sure there's been many years of reporting done on this zone, where Clark University has the right of first refusal to buy any property that comes on the market first prior to it being listed, and the city agreed to those restrictions, like 40 years ago. This is an old thing. Yeah. And Clark has used this many times to purchase many properties that are close to the neighborhood around Clark, and which has taken many of those apartment buildings that may normally have been traditional city stock buildings, and have made them into quasi dorms. They're not exactly dorms because it's a little bit different, but that's a true statement that already exists in the city. So if it was in existence for one university, why wouldn't it have been in place in a similar area? Like why wasn't the same kind of thing operating? We know it already happens there. And I'm sure if we did just a little bit of digging, there's probably similar agreements with most of the major universities in the city already. Why was this particular one so upsetting that the city, that this shadow,
The
the
shadow government.
League of Shadows, what's
And
the
just to be clear, so because it's an informal meeting, there are no minutes, there are no records of anything that happens in that meeting.
there's no cell phone camera surreptitiously placed in the room, you know?
Nope,
Now
nothing, no records.
I'm never gonna get in those offices again. They're gonna worry that I'm gonna try to plant a little teeny little camera somewhere.
Please don't.
I'm not gonna do that. Why would I do that? Listen,
That will get you arrested.
by the way, I just want to say this out loud, right? For those people out there, I have a lot of friends that love conspiracy theories, right? And I think they're great. Sometimes they're awesome. But let me tell you, at the base of all conspiracies, do you know what exists at the base of all of them? Human beings. And human beings are subject to human error. They are always subject to making mistakes. And they will expose themselves without even realizing it over and over and over again. The thing that just strikes me in this particular situation is that, first of all, those hotels, I don't know that necessarily those hotels will be booked out week after week after week, which this letter seemed to insinuate, because I just don't know that there's a lot of hotel demand in the city that we want to say that there is for tourism, right? In fact, if you go near St. V's, the what's called, I think they're calling it the Worcester Hotel now. But anyways, there's a hotel across from the post office that that at one point was branded, maybe I forget what it was branded. It's gone through different names, but it's like off the books now as a branded hotel, which usually means they weren't selling a certain number of rooms, right? Because to maintain like a Marriott or a Hilton or any of those particular brands, you have to sell a certain number of hotels. So we know already that there's some hotels that aren't able to make those certain levels in the city. So I don't know about these things being converted. I actually kind of like the fact that the hotels would get converted to dorms versus them taking apartment buildings and taking those off the rolls, which is what Clark has done. Right. So we've lost in a housing crisis, we've lost a tremendous amount of apartment space in the Clark neighborhood area. And so I guess I would prefer a hotel, but also I understand that, the hotel could have been converted to a bunch of apartments or whatever. So there's all these different things.
I used to live at Salisbury Estates on Park Ave, which is right next to WPI. It is
Yeah.
now WPI student housing.
Yeah. And I mean, and then, Becker went under. And when Becker went under, there's a bunch of buildings down there that still haven't been sold. I know Clark bought some of them, and I know WPI has been investigating buying some of them. But my office is right on Elm Park. I can walk down those streets. A bunch of those buildings are empty that were Becker buildings for many, many years. And so then we're not just talking about like living space buildings, but we're talking about buildings that were used for classrooms and had like that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Those
Yep.
empty right now. And so are those going to get rebought? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to those. Can those get activated and become apartment buildings? Why? It seems just, why don't we think through these things logically? WPI, in my opinion, is just doing what all the other universities in the city already do.
No, hold on. WPI, the company selling these buildings.
Yeah.
And WPI, which is a nonprofit, but I mean, it's a big institution. They're doing what's in their interests.
Yeah, which is they all do.
Right. So certainly anything that has investors, right? And anything that has like a big institution like WPI, yes, it's a C3, but I mean, the leadership there is interested in growing its practice, right? It's campus, getting more students in, etc. Right. But especially anything with investors, they have a legal obligation to do nothing but make as much money as humanly possible.
Right. And WPI's got money in spades, bro. They shovel money.
Well, but this company that owns the bill, I think it's a company that's a New York company that just owns hotels, right?
Yeah.
And all they care about is how much money they're making for their investors, because that's why their board, which is elected by their investors, makes them the CEO, and CEO appoints leadership, right? That's what it's all about. So corporate responsibility is not a thing that exists. Corporate responsibility is marketing, and they do it because they think it's in their best interest.
Mm-hmm.
right? They don't do it because they're like lovely people, because their only goal in life is make as much money as possible for their investors, or they won't have the job and somebody else will get the job to make as much money as humanly possible for their investors. But we have to have, but to do anything about that, to take precautions against that, is not business friendly. And therefore you have organizations like the Chamber of Commerce who would be wholly against it.
To me, I'm with you. I understand. That's what I think. I understand they're called nonprofit organizations, but they don't really act like nonprofits as far as I can see, because they spend a lot of money, they make a lot of money. A lot of people have a lot of high-paying jobs. I've been into some of the administrators' offices at Clark University, and man, those are really fancy desks and computers that they got in there. So they're doing all right. It's not like they're complaining about their fully stocked refrigerator that they have inside of their office, right? So I just don't really look at them in the same way as I look at like a local nonprofit that operates out of, I don't know, there's a bunch of nonprofits in the Village on King Street that are not the same as WPI and Clark University. They're just not the same entities, and they're not even generally close. And so I look at that as a nonprofit versus these over here. And I think that they're just doing, again, the city has set the standard for these groups of self-interested people to act in their own self-interest, because the city kind of has done the same thing for other big organizations. I don't know, like Polar Park, like the Red Sox, like Tabletop Pies. Like we can just go on and on and on and on about local companies that have gotten tax breaks and this, that, and the other third. And so WPI just did what they saw everybody doing, and they're like, we'll just do this. And
and it's ironic that the city owns Polar Park and is leasing it, but they sold this property off.
The fun thing is, Tom, maybe you should start looking into some of the names of the people that were on these listings and the deeds and the this and the that, and you might start to find an interesting.
I looked at the deeds.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was, that's how I found out who the company was. But
nothing fun yet. No, so
yeah, it's just any restriction on business at all.
Yeah.
That's socialism, and you're un-American and all that, and this is what you get.
Yeah.
I get $1 million. I think it's $1.7 million getting taken off the books, and the city's now reactively, of course, trying to put a bunch of pressure on WPI not to do this, but WPI won't say a word. They're not commenting to nobody. You know why? Because they're going to do this because it's in their best interest.
I hope WPI holds their ground, because I don't really care about this shadow committee and their letter that they sent now, and they made a public, declaration of how shocked they were. Yes. I would like you to make a public declaration about how shocked you are the fact that we have kids in this city homeless right now. Write that letter. Write that letter right now, because this shows you your priority chain is about making these big companies a lot of money, and you really don't care about the people of the city of Worcester. Write your shadow letter about that. Stop writing about stuff like this, because to be honest with you, I don't care what WPI does. I really don't, because you don't care about the people of Worcester, the little group. And I know all of you, I have relationships with all of you. I don't care. I am tired of seeing these decisions and this conversation that says, hey, this is a really important thing, and we need other people to think that it's really important, when there are children literally on the street in your city. Shame on you. Shame on all of you for making a letter like that the priority versus the things that need to be prioritized. You don't do the right thing consistently. And what this does is it fuels the fire of conspiracy in the city of Worcester, that everything is done behind closed doors, secret, hush, hush, wah, 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 and that there's a secret committee that governs everything. All you've done is show people that that's probably true. And so you can't even get out of your own way. How are you in charge of anything? Seriously. How are you in charge of anything when you can't even realize what it looks like to a group of people who have been accusing you of doing that exact thing for years, and you write a letter and it says, hey, we are actually the secret controlling cabal of the entire city, and we want to say, no, don't do that. And by the way, Tom and I live in a universe of people that question you just a little bit. We really do. We kind of live in this little infrastructure.
And that's very offensive to them, by the way. It's very offensive to them.
Yeah, if you ask a question that is not in line with the overall plan, by the way, a group of 9 people can't be the only people involved in the overall plan for a city of 210,000 plus people. You have to have more people involved. There are unbelievably great people working their butts off every single day in this city to make a better place for people to live and raise their kids and have economic success and growth and change, and you only care about the opinions of a group of 9. What is wrong with you? Grow up. Seriously, grow up. It's ridiculous. It's
Well,
unbelievable.
and the best thing is,
oh no, I'm sorry, Tom. But anybody
No,
who
you're
gets
good.
on that train on Facebook and starts making the comments and starts saying, "Oh, well, you don't agree with the city manager, oh, and you don't agree with this, and you don't agree with that. You must be this, you must be that." Well, look me up and know what I'm about and understand me for a second. I'm trying to make you think logically. How can a group of men that have so much power and authority not think through what this would look like? How do you not think through that and not understand that people like me are going to go secret council and make fun of you? Because that's what it looks like. Dude, we live in an internet age where everything's a meme. You literally made yourselves into a meme with one letter. Ugh.
yeah, I don't even know why. Like, they were just so upset that they had to. They're just like, oh, by the way, we're something you've never heard of before.
I'm
You know,
sweating.
it's you know, and all of this, you know, I've said this before, but all this economic development that's so supposedly making us such a great city. We are the 7th lowest median household income of 59 cities in the state. So I don't
And
know,
by the way,
waiting for their accomplishment.
This massive investment in tourism, how's that working? Do we have tourism? No.
Well, that's
And I
actually, we should mention that. We should mention that these 2 hotels going away will also and 25% of the city's hotel capacity. There is some concern that events that may already be booked, you know, stuff that's planned well ahead, certainly with the hotel capacity would be left with. Things like the NCAA tournament coming back here is in jeopardy, and other things would be in jeopardy. So that's the tourism angle of it.
But so let me just hit that point. You know, I work with Manny and Manage Media. I own Hollywood Film Group. I'm also a part owner of Dead of Winter Entertainment. These are three companies, just 3, that were originated here in the city of Worcester, that have focused on building and designing economic things from the ground up here in this city, making opportunities for the people here. What you just mentioned, the NCAA tournament, is a singular event from a national organization that randomly awards cities based on how much they kiss whoever happens to be the president. Our former governor, Charlie Baker, currently right now is the current NCAA president, and they get an awards. And of course, part of what Charlie Baker's post-governor tour is he's going to steer one of those games to Massachusetts. Oh, look what I did. Just like Mitt Romney did with Utah and the Olympics. So that it's this huge constant, you know, everybody gets on the gravy train. The problem is it's not sustainable economic development. You have to develop it from the ground up. We literally have thousands of years of proof. This is not something I'm just pulling out of my butt and saying, hey, you know, this is what it is. It doesn't matter what the system is. It doesn't matter if it's, the serf and king system. It doesn't matter if it's communism, socialism, capitalism. It doesn't matter if it's. And by the way, we don't even live in a capitalistic economy. We live in a subsidized corporate economy, because corporations receive subsidies which allow them to have a benefit level that a smaller company can't. But there are small companies doing the work to bring those things into the city and to have them be sustainable forever. That's who you should be investing in. So if you're watching here and you're like, oh my goodness, the NCAA is not going to come back to the DCU Center, which is already priced out everybody who wants to go to those games anyways. Why don't we invest in something local right here? Hey, there's a basketball team right here in the city, the Worcester Majors, owned by Poppy Pay, a young kid who's from the city of Worcester, youngest person ever to own a basketball team. Nobody wants to invest in him. Why? Because you're so looking at these big, giant corporations to save the day. Stop looking over there to save the day. Do it right here. You have it right here.
As somebody who once owned a team in the American Basketball Association,
yes, you
did.
Tell
you that is a gigantic waste of time, and he will get no support from anybody.
Because I support him.
A con man runs a thing. An 86-year-old con man runs a thing.
Yeah, but I would have supported you if I had known you back then when you owned an ABA team, and I completely understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is that system of not having local support is set up by this system that looks to the outside, to these big companies, because, hey, if X company comes to Worcester, they're going to bring the gravy train. But that's not always the case, because then they leave. then they leave. Even
Well,
local
no,
companies.
it's why, look, if you're building like if you're a business to business company, it's a little different. But if you're a business to consumer company, why would you move to Worcester? Nobody has any money. It's that simple.
And you know how you do it? You invest in education, you invest in skills training, you help people develop entrepreneurship. There's a great agency here in the city, E for All, that develops entrepreneurs. Manny's a graduate of it. There's a bunch of people on this chat that are watching that are graduates of that program. They're having amazing opportunities. There's a bunch of ground level organizations that are doing this despite no support from the secret cabal government that you just exposed with your letter. We know that you don't support us, so we're not even going to worry about it. It doesn't even matter. I don't even care what you think about us because you're not going to support us anyways until we are successful, and then you will get on the train. When we're successful, you'll go, oh, I want to be a part of that, and you'll change your mind completely. But you should start thinking about doing it now.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to change the economic reality of the city, it doesn't start with lowering commercial taxes so you can raise them on people who already have no money. It begins with building a workforce that employers need.
By the way,
Because take it from someone who used to be in that business, that companies spend a lot more money hiring talent than paying taxes. A lot more.
Speaking of which, all the business I see in the on Twitter and on Facebook and on YouTube, I see all the different people that I know that are business owners. You see that you're all in the same chat right now watching This Week in Worcester, right? This is advertising. You want to sponsor? Let's put a little ad right here. We can put something right up over Tom's
Relentless.
head. Right there. Hold on. What? This way. Bang! Right there. Right up over Tom's head. You could put your ad right there, and that you're going to guarantee yourself economic development instead of spending money in the Telegram and Gazette. Do you still ad there? Nobody reads it anymore. Right? This is the future of media is just like this. Manny J Media, the shirt that I'm wearing right here. Right? Thousands upon thousands of people who watch and subscribe every day. Same thing with Tom. So we're local. We're right here. If you want to reach the people of the city of Worcester, come on. We can do it together. We're right here, right on board. Reach out. There's a million different ways we could do cool things here. Look on the wall here. Those are all movies that I'm producing. Me. Look at me.
All right with the commercial. Look at
this thing right here, this nonsense that I am. I'm doing that because I work really hard and I have a lot of good relationships with a lot of people. And that is the key. Work hard, have good relationships, and do the things that you say you're going to do. Don't do sneaky stuff behind people's back. You will get caught. I know, because I'm a person who got caught doing sneaky stuff in my life. Don't do sneaky stuff. Just do the right thing. Leaders of Worcester, do the right thing.
And our last subject for the day. Let's make it quick. I only have one thing to say about it, and that is we want to talk about the new grant distributions to local nonprofits. If there is a first time funded in that list, I didn't pick it out.
No, so I mean, again, so I wrote a letter and I put it up on Worcester Political Dialogue, run by Jack Murray. For everybody to know, nephew of aforementioned Tim Murray, but Jack is a little different. But anyways, I wanted to give Jack a shout out. I wrote a letter responding to the folks responding to the ARPA distributions. And if you look at the list, right, at the top of the list, the people that got the most money are organizations that have existed for long periods of time and already have a lot of money, already have a pretty robust fundraising operation, and tend to culturally be in one bracket. And that bracket looks like me. So it is what it is. And then at the bottom of the list, you had organizations that have not existed as long, but have been getting funding that got a lot less comparatively, if you look at the list. What I want to say to the folks out there is they were never going to give you that money anyways, right? Because the system is set up to deliver the money to the people that they like and not us. It just, that's the way it is. So the way that you do it, though, is that you couple a group together with us. If they won't give you a seat at the table, make your own table.
So I don't know if it's necessarily that direct. I think that it takes a lot more work to vet a new potential recipient.
Well, I guess I understand, but if you go back to the ARP, so the big thing is this is ARPA money that's supposed to help organizations that were dramatically affected by COVID. That's what this money's supposed to be. And if you look at the top of the list, those are organizations that were not dramatically affected by COVID. It just is what it is. So it's literally
have
blatant
endless
in your
money.
face. And they have a bunch of money anyways already. And they and not only that, they also are organizations that have been in the fundraising space for decades in some cases, and in case of several of them, more than 100 years. Mechanics Hall's on that list. I have great relationships over at Mechanics Hall. They have a tremendous fundraising operation, and they also raise for other charities in the city. I'm sure they're happy with the money that they got, but they probably don't need it as much as some of the smaller organizations that we've just talked about. Those are the companies that probably need to be invested in if there was a thought process in that office about how do we help make the most impact. $100,000 in the hands of a smaller nonprofit that's never had that kind of money is going to have tremendous immediate economic impact, particularly the ones that are on this list. They have been vetted more than once. They have been gone over, and they have been they've gone through every loop, every jump, everything that they needed to do to be on this list in the first place. And so what they're saying is that it was top weighted and it should have been bottom weighted. And I agree with them on that. But I want to say to them also, you cannot depend on the government to save the day. They don't want to save the day. It's not their function. Their function realistically is to stay in power and to continue to operate the way that they've operated because they think that it works for them. So you can't expect them to fix it. You have to fix it yourself. And the way you fix it yourself is you gather around you like-minded people and you work together in a community collaboration. It doesn't have to be any particular political thing. It just has to be, hey, let's work together, let's collaborate, let's do some cool stuff, and we can get a lot done. Tom and I have a cool collaboration. Maybe we can announce it today that we're doing, right? A really unique thing that's probably gonna bring some economic impact to the city of Worcester, because there's people that are gonna pay me and Tom for great stuff.
So I think look, we see this in all walks of life. People that are doing all right love perpetuating the status quo.
Sure, they want it to stay the same. Yeah, makes sense.
And people that are in positions of power love perpetuating the status quo. And so this is just another. This is a small example of that.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is, I agree with the complaint. The general complaint is true, but forget them. Forget their money. You can do it better without them. All that time and effort that you put in those grants, those weeks and months of filling out paperwork and going through this level and that level and all that, we could do other things. Cool, dope, super things that are about the people of the city of Worcester. We could do it. We can. I believe it. Can we make an announcement before I ask the question? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to say? Yeah. How do you feel?
I guess. Sure.
So for those of you watching, you probably know that I'm the president of Hollywood Film Group, and Tom and I are launching a cool little collaborative thing called Hollywood News. And Hollywood News is going to have profiles of local filmmakers from New England that are doing different things around the state. And we have some cool people who have filled out this cool survey. If you are in the chat somewhere, there's a bunch of you right now. We got people all over the place, and you make films or you work in the film industry in any capacity, and you want to get involved, reach out to me. You can you find me on Facebook and all these different places, Instagram, blah 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 blah, or reach out to Tom and we'll get you the 10 questions. It's just really a survey. You fill it out, and then you get a chance to have your profile featured in Tom's entertainment section, right? And then on my website, Hollywood Film Group, and then in all the local film group. There's a bunch of film groups all over New England that mutually support each other and like to promote each other in their films. So it's a cool thing that we're doing together, and it's going to make Tom's entertainment page look fire. Not that it wasn't good. Not that it wasn't good. It was good, but it's going to be even better.
No, it's
right?
it's underutilized. It's underutilized. Yeah. Hit us with the question.
Okay, ready. Okay, so for those of you who have been watching along, and those of you who are new, at the end of every week, I ask Tom something food related, okay? It was a lot of dessert questions. There was some candy questions. Last week I threw him a curveball and I asked him what his favorite vegetable was. Now I think that some people would assume that this week I would then try to, do the easy thing and pivot to the favorite fruit. But I'm not going to do that. Not going to give him that chance. No, 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 no. I'm going to pivot to a completely different direction. And I'm going to ask Tom. Are you ready for this, everybody? Tom, what is your favorite kind of bread?
Favorite
Are you not
kind of
entertained?
bread?
Are you not entertained?
I mean, although, I think all the Shrewsbury Street bakeries are gone now, aren't they? But, old school, fresh out of the oven, like when we were a kid from Shrewsbury Street, Italian bread.
Italian bread?
Yeah, like
Come
straight out of the oven, straight from the bowl of pasta. Come on, I'm a wop.
Check in with your favorite breads in the chat. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I'm gonna go. All right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna throw this out there that I actually have a weird bread that I really like that I don't eat enough of, but I should eat more of. And I'm gonna say pumpernickel. That's right. Pumpernickel. Bro, pumpernickel, a little honey mustard.
That made me so upset I got blurry. What's up with that?
Yo, his camera got sick from pumpernickel.
Yeah, it did. That's my camera throwing up on itself.
Sam Sachs checks in with the rye bread.
I love the logic.
Yeah, of course. That's Sammy. That's my buddy. Hey, Sam, what's up, bro? Yeah, so the rye bread is good. That's a strong thing. Also, I am partial to sourdough. Right? I actually bought a loaf of sourdough bread. I don't know what's happening, Tom. You're just out of focus. We're running out of time. You know what I mean? We're past. Oh, Tom Marino's checked out. I now take over. This is John takes over the This Week in Worcester podcast. Oh no, he's
I'm
back.
just gonna stay blurry.
So
I was just trying to unblur, but apparently
I know everybody wants me to take over, but eventually we'll get it. We'll get it done. Well, the conspiracy is in. The EDCC's next letter that they're going to write is going to be for me to take over and undermine Tom completely. That's going to be the next thing the shadow committee decides is Tom. It's Tom bringing it.
I don't think I'm that important that they would bother. But just a quick This Week in Worcester note. Doing a little homepage redesign. Going to add a column section because I got a little flack, and rightfully so. It was deserved criticism about my series on the school committee having a bunch of commentary in it, which was true. So we're gonna separate that stuff out, have another section, and when we have things to say, we're gonna say them there, and make there a big bright line between news pieces and stuff that's commentary. So message heard, and we're gonna fix it.
And for those of you, I know Neil McNamara is leaving Patch, another stalwart of the local, press. That was announced the other day. So there's not a lot of places here that you can find out local news. I just want to say to Neil, great dude. I've worked with him in the past. I've written for Neil, tremendous editor, and has done a lot of great work. In the city of Worcester, bringing some things to light. And he's one of the few places where you find a lot of some of this cool event-based news. So Tom is trying to do the same thing and building up his This Week in Worcester empire. And so, come check out the website. Come check out thisweekinworcester.com. You can always check into Manny J Media and check out Manny on the road. You got to ask who makes the best bread in town. Oh, no. Sam Sachs is trying to get us in trouble, Tom. You can't do that. You can't do that, Sam. You can't ask who makes the best bread.
Who makes the best bread in town? The first one that sponsors us. That's who.
Yeah, that's true. If you'd like to sponsor the This Week in Worcester podcast, we will say that you make the best bread. That is 100% the case. 100% the case. Oh, I will. Hey, real quick shout out to Santiago's. Makes a fine Puerto Rican bread. We have no shame. That's right, Sam. We have no shame. Wormtown Productions, you want to sponsor This Week in Worcester? Pick it in, bro. We will throw a worm right here. right above me. There'll be a little worm with his little camera thing.
Listen, I'm not in the bread review business, so no, I don't have any shame about my bread reviews. That's true. So there we are with another episode that we will.
All the messages on X.com.
Yeah, I know.
There's
That's
like
Twitter.
75
That's called
people
Twitter.
there, though. I can't see all your messages.
Yeah. So I think that will be it at 1 hour and 16 minutes. That will be it for this episode. We will try again next week and try to screw it up less.
Fact check us. Fact check us.
For Mr. John Edward Keogh, the executive producer at Manage Media, I am Tom Marino at This Week